On that day, a cruel night claimed many lives. Heavy rain fell, further soaking and erasing the pools of blood. At the center of the battle stood a man exhausted by battle. His sword was his only support. Finally, as he raised his head, he saw that all the comrades who had fought alongside him, shoulder to shoulder, had been killed. But at some point, the man heard a voice. Just imagine, there are still people this strong. At first, the man was afraid, but as he looked down, his eyes soon filled with anger, and he whispered, "Still alive?" The hero stood on a giant creature. The creature had 2 pairs of horns and 4 wings. Its body was white with black scars, and its name was Akayu the Great. 20 days ago, he appeared to the Empire and began sowing chaos for no reason whatsoever. He was the last of the 3 giants. Standing on the giant's head, the young man shouted angrily, "Because of you, half of the Empire has turned into a graveyard. Why are you still alive?" And Heyuda replied that he would soon return to his world. The man said that he was glad to hear it, because his friends had been waiting for a long time. The 2 people who came with him, one was burned alive by an angry red dragon, and the other was locked up forever by an old man named Lorien. But the man's words did not faze the giant. In a calm tone he said, "Without hiding the truth behind false words, O brave one, the children of the stars are bound to each other. We know that their opponents perish with them. So, there are no more brave people like you left?" The young man laughed again and said that he was still alive, but Hayu immediately replied, "Don't jump to conclusions. Your end is near. If only you had realized your abilities earlier and started honing them, you would have been a great obstacle for us. You're a righteous man, and you should be proud of that, but in the end, your world will disappear." Enveloped in starlight, the man could not contain his rage. He raised his sword, and with one sharp slash decapitated the giant. When it was all over, the hero remembered the good days when the world was still peaceful and prosperous. Kneeling, he paid his respects to his fallen comrades, and suddenly there was a cry, "Is anyone there? I can't move from Aaron." Instantly, the man seemed to come to his senses. Struggling to his feet, he made his way towards the weak, barely audible voice. For the hero felt that the voice was so familiar to him. As he approached a large rock, he saw a girl sitting. With a genuine smile, she said, "You are safe, Commander Adeshan. But for a commander, you look quite pathetic." The girl sat in a pool of her own blood, missing one arm, and in a weak voice replied, "Ronan, you're a corporal, but you don't look any better than me. But there are more important things. Akayud, he's dead." The man replied that he had killed him, and his body was lying nearby. Realizing that it was all over, tears of joy flowed from Adeshan's eyes. Smiling, the girl thanked the man sincerely. Seizing the moment, Ronan inquired about the funeral of the fallen soldiers and pleaded with the commander to give them a proper send-off. Adeshan said that the corporal seemed more alive than him, but when the man coughed up blood, all questions disappeared. Ronan added that he could die at any time, because throughout his life he had wasted too much time on trivial things, and because of that, he hadn't had time to do much. That's what made his death feel so unfair. After thinking for a moment, the commander asked, "If you had survived, what would you have done?" Smiling, the man replied, "My wish list is very long, but right now only one thing comes to mind. What would it be like to study at the academy? But that's just a dream. What that big monster did really hurt me. But far more important is that my brother's last wish was to send me to the academy. After all, I will soon be reunited with my family." Just then, Adeshan exclaimed, "When the rain stops, the search team will find us." But Ronan replied, "For me, it's all over." Then why is the chief talking nonsense? Right at that moment, the rain stopped. Adeshan and the corporal were surprised, but suddenly the whole ground shook and giants descended from the sky. Seeing them, Ronan shouted, "8 wings! What madness! Where did they come from?" Realization dawned on Adeshan, and he began to think. No way! So, it's not all over with those 3 giants. In the end, I failed to save the world for the 3rd time. Now only one last chance remains. Ronan's shout brought the commander back from his reverie. "What are you waiting for? Come to your senses. Use telekinesis, or whatever, and throw me up. I can't reach them with a sword from the ground." Desperately, Ade-shan asked. You really want to fight even under these circumstances? The corporal replied. Of course. Have you given up and instead devised a dramatic death scenario? Even if I die, won't I have to drag these bastards with me? After that searing speech, Ade-shan sank back into his thoughts, realizing that Ronin would never give up. Quickly grasping the situation, the commander painstakingly stood up. Leaning on Ronin, he kissed his lips to transfer some of his strength. A small blue ball went straight into Ronin's mouth. The corporal grumbled. What did you put in my mouth? Ade-shan whispered something into his ear. But Ronin, who thought Ade-shan was losing his mind, ignored him. But the commander then said, Corporal Ronin, when we meet again, please remind me not to act stupid and live the life of a common tailor. I've tried everything, but I've never really succeeded. At that moment, the 8-winged creature unleashed its technique. A giant ball of energy was launched at the heroes. The light from the technique illuminated the entire area, but never reached Ronin. As he opened his eyes, Ronin kept calling out to his commander, until he realized that he was now in his hometown, Nani Butine. Ronin was shocked. He couldn't believe he had gone back in time. Sitting under a tree, he held his head. He couldn't believe what was happening, but the commander's words sounded so real. He also remembered when Ade-shan said, You just swallowed a magic orb that can reverse time. Thanks to that magic orb, I who was once just an ordinary tailor was able to reach the position of commander-in-chief. It allows one to go back in time 4 times, and I've already used it 3 times. Now there's only one chance left, so I'm giving it to you, the power to destroy giants. I believe you are the key to saving this world. You must hone your skills, and I'm glad that your desires are in line with my goals. If you want to learn, go to Filion Academy. There are many great people there. I'm sure it will help you a lot. And Corporal Ronin, when we meet again, please remind me not to be a fool and become a common tailor. Without really knowing if it was a dream or real, Ronin stood up and banged his head against a tree. But he soon realized that all of this was indeed real. After organizing his thoughts, he thought, even if this is real, if I really went back in time, what could I do alone? Then he gasped, wait, if this is the past, that means I can see my brother again. He picked up a branch from the ground and ran home as fast as he could. Soon, Ronin was in the center of town. Suddenly, he saw a boy hanging upside down from a tree, while a group of young men laughed loudly at him. Ronin stopped and thought, these guys, even in the past, they were still the same jerks. But wait, that boy isn't hanging by a rope, it's magic. Someone of such value is rarely even seen on the battlefield. Unbelievable, something like this just happened. Nearby stood a red-haired boy, looking like a girl. He looked very anxious for the hanging child, but couldn't do anything about it. The hanging child was terrified with tears in her eyes. He cried out, please stop. I really have no money. One of the thugs approached and said haughtily, I'm draining your pockets, so why should I care about your mother's plight? Raising her hand, the blonde slapped the hanging boy and added, if you want to be a filial son, you should earn more money. But that wasn't enough for her. She then turned to the red-haired boy. Hey, this kid doesn't understand who he's dealing with yet. Raise him up to the top of the tree. With eyes full of fear, the red-haired boy, Ashel, replied, I can't. If I lift him higher, he might fall accidentally. The blonde was furious, and with a menacing look shouted for Ashel to do it right now, otherwise she would catch up with the victim. Ashel asked herself, how did all this happen? She began to doubt why she had learned magic. With a voice trembling with fear, she finally said, please stop. Suddenly, someone hit him on the head with a stick while shouting, stop! You'll kill him! The spell was broken, and the hanging child fell to the ground. The blonde could not contain her anger and shouted at Ashel. But then, Ronin stood before him and calmly said, forget that lowlife, just talk to me. I need to discuss something with you. Where did you learn telekinesis magic? The red-haired boy replied, I learned from a grimoire I bought from a traveling merchant. Ronin was surprised at how good Ashel's skills were, despite learning from a cheap book. He decided to continue observing him. Suddenly, there was the sound of a sword being pulled from its sheath. The blonde was really angry. She took a fighting stance and angrily said, how dare you ignore me? It seems that since the last time I defeated you, you've gotten a big head. But today, I'm going to teach you some manners. The boy charged towards Ronan, and Ronan thought, wow, that's a long sword. Where did this bastard get such a weapon? His horses were terrible, but usually he is quite content with hand-to-hand power. But not in this case. Although my body is younger, other parts of me remain the same. A sense of combat has been instilled in me during my time as a soldier. Ronan easily dodged the blond man's attack, pretending that everything was fine. The insolent man laughed and said, luck is on your side. I'll leave you with a limp, unable to even lift a spoon for the rest of your life. Since this is the case, kneel down and beg, then I'll let you live. I have to say goodbye to my one hand. And if I kill you, will I take good care of your sister? Rona didn't hear and she asked again, did you just say that, sis? Through her laughter, the blonde exclaims that every time she sees her, she thinks of her. After all, his ass was so round. Before he could say anything, Ronan quickly attacked the insolent man with quick and sharp movements. He sliced his ear as accurately as possible. The blonde screamed in pain, and then Ronan whispered with madness in his eyes, hey, degenerate, do you want to die? The blonde's friends standing nearby couldn't believe their eyes, because she had cut off her ear with just a piece of wood. Looking at his group of friends who were overcome with fear, Ronan exclaimed, hey, shitheads, enjoying this spectacle? Take this bastard and go if you value your ears. And don't forget to leave the loot, along with the payment for my ruined mood. Taking all the money, the young man gave it to the poor boy. Cito neighs, and the boy is immediately surprised by the action, but decides to admit that there is more money in the sack than they took. Ronan didn't care, though. He said that this sword was enough for him. After that he muttered, don't worry, they won't come for you again. They don't have the guts to come near you. At that moment, Donichel, whose head was turning red, stood nearby. In an excited tone, she muttered, I'm really sorry. I know I shouldn't have done such a thing, even under Han's threat, but I was so scared that I couldn't argue with him. This is all my fault. I'm really sorry. The young man replied with a smile on his face, it's not your fault, so don't blame yourself too much. It's not your fault, but it feels good that you apologized. Ronan let the young man go quietly, and when he was left alone with him, he reminded the young man that he wanted to talk to him. But Ronan had even set a date for the meeting. He said that they would meet here in 4 days. And Shell misunderstood the young man and asked again, 4 days? What are you talking about? But by that time, Ronan was already going about his business. Leaving, he added, I'm busy right now, so I'll see you later after the moon rises. Of course, if you don't come, guess what will happen, right? And after a while, Ronan came to his simple yet cozy cabin. You could see from the boy's face how timid he was, as Ronan picked flowers to give to his sister. Just as he was thinking about throwing the flowers away or giving them to his sister, the door opened. His sister came out of the house and said, I wondered who was outside. It's you, Ronan, back home. Looking at his sister, the boy thought, during my time in the army, I wondered 1,000 times what I should say when I met you again. Should I apologize for leaving without saying goodbye, or should I say how much I missed it? I have thought about it so much, but all those words will only belong to Ronald the soldier. That's all I can say now. The boy looked down and mumbled, I went home. The younger brother greeted his brother with joy after Iriel let Ron into the house. He hugged the flowers and shouted, I'm so happy. I never thought in my life that the day would come when my cold brother would give me a bouquet of flowers. I am so happy. A conversation ensued between brother and sister. Rona decided to clarify how old her brother was just in case. Iriel hesitantly replied that he was 22 years old. The boy immediately started counting and realized that it was about 10 years before the creatures attacked. And Riel was not at ease, as she felt hurt that her little brother could forget how old his own sister was. When Riel tells him something, Ronan says that he wishes days like this would last forever. Back in the real world, Ronan muttered, I have something to tell you. I'm thinking of joining the academy. For a second or 3, Irel processed the information. Once she realized that her brother was serious, the girl rejoiced. After shaking his hand, she quickly ran somewhere. The child didn't understand anything at the time. But when Ronan saw a big cauldron of money, he smiled in his confusion and thanked his brother. Irel, the townsman, explained everything. I have prepared a surprise for you. I've been secretly saving up to surprise you if you decide to enroll. I want to give you a chance." The boy didn't know what to say to her at first, but after collecting his thoughts, he muttered, "You're amazing. When can you save that much? But you'd better use it yourself. It won't be enough." The sister replied in surprise, "Hey, what are you talking about? There's more than meets the eye. I don't know where exactly you're going to enroll." But interrupting her sister, Rona exclaimed sharply and clearly to the Filian of the Imperial Academy. This information shocked Iriel so much that he cried out in surprise. Moments later, after packing his things and departing, Ronan thought, Filian Imperial Academy, the best educational institution in the Empire, with the best teachers from all over the continent, coupled with funding from the ruling family, had created a place that provided an incomparable education, prestigious enough to be called the Workshop of Heroes. This place has a very high status. Addition Supreme Commander, Schofenball Master, Worst Villain, Winter Witch, and many more. Graduates of this academy are very useful during the war, so the Commander-in-Chief's advice makes a lot of sense. But with a high entry threshold and crazy prices, his popularity became a problem. Meanwhile, the boy showed up at the appointed time to meet with Sakhel. Upon seeing his friend, the young man murmured, "I didn't expect you to come, Marshal." The red-haired boy replied excitedly, "I'm not Marshal, I'm Ashel, and you said yourself you wouldn't be disappointed if I didn't come." Ronan smiled and told Ashel to forget it. After all, they were going to be very busy tonight. And actually, the boy decided to check something. Pointing at himself, he said, "Use telekinesis on me and lift me as high as possible." And Shelley got excited because she didn't want to hurt her friend. But after Ronan persuaded the red-haired boy, the boy anxiously agreed anyway, and Shell gathered his thoughts, stretching his arms out in front of him. He raised Ronak. The hero rejoiced that he had succeeded. While floating in the air, he thought, although it hasn't been this high and steady, but this feeling is very similar. During the battle with Ahayut, it was telekinesis that allowed me to fight that strange creature with equal strength. Telekinesis was a rare skill among witches that was also rare, which meant that it would be the most important part of future battles with Ahayut. And the beginnings were starting to take shape nicely. At this point, Ashel's shortness of breath appeared, and yes, sweat also appeared on her face. Closing his eyes, the red-haired boy shouted, "This is getting harder and harder. Can I put you down?" Still with a smile on his face, Ron, while taking out his knife sword, replied, "Just hold on a little longer. There are just a few things to check, and I'll go down myself." And Shell opened his eyes and watched the young man's actions carefully, as he didn't understand how Ronan could go down by himself. At that moment, floating in space, the young man stopped his technique and carefully descended to the ground. Surprised, Ashel could not contain his shock. He immediately decided to inquire about what Ronan had done. The boy proudly replied, "Ah, nothing. A little stunt I did earlier." The red-haired boy still couldn't believe what he saw, so he continued, "What acrobatics are you talking about? This is the first time I've seen someone split a river." Ron didn't bother to do the ceremony. The boy started hitting him on the head with his fist. All that was done to keep him out of trouble. The young man explained that he did not understand how it worked, and finding out the nature of this ability was just one of the tasks in the homework he received. Glancing at his sword, Ronan thought, the reason it was working on him, this must be it. Keeping the sword in its sheath, the young man walked towards his backpack. Picking it up, he threw the backpack aside in the shelter while saying, "Anyway, you came to check. Catch it and come with me. We still have a lot to do before the moon sets." The red-haired boy was surprised again and asked, "It's late at night?" Smiling, Ronan replied excitedly, "What do you mean? This will be the first page of Ro's biography in the Empire's greatest history book." With their backpacks on, the companions began their journey. However, the journey had not yet begun. Kakashel immediately started asking questions. "Filian Academy? I heard you right, Ronan. We are going to Filian Academy, where all the Imperial elite go to school. You and me." Tired of answering questions, Ronan chided, "Yeah, right, there's nothing to interrupt, it's annoying." "Why, you don't want to." The shy boy decided to explain that it wasn't because of that, but because he didn't know how to do anything. He was timid and shy. Looking at the red-haired boy, Ronan said with a serious expression, "Are you planning to continue living like this having the innate talent to waste it on entertaining trash? Is that really the life you want? Yes, you have all sorts of chaotic traits in you. You're timid and cowardly, and you're also a crybaby, and a loser who's afraid of everything. But that's okay, because now you can change, but the time lost now can't catch up with you, and someday you'll regret it. So this is your life, and I won't force you. So you can come back if you want. At that moment, Ashel was very happy to hear Ron's words and thought, "Oh my God, he's so worried about people like me." While the red-haired boy was thinking, the hero turned around and walked away muttering, "But I have something to do, so..." Quickly thinking about it, Ashel shouted, "Wait, I want to change too. I'm going to Fillion with you, so teach me everything I need to know." Ronan grinned as if his plan had worked, and indeed everything was going smoothly so far. Looking at Ashel, the young man said in a commanding voice, "Well, this is the first time you've shown courage. So, the first test for the great brave. Let's begin." And Shell readily agreed, without even knowing what awaited him. With a sly smile, Roman thought, just as I had planned. After a while, his friends spotted a campfire in the forest. They quietly approached and watched from behind the bushes. And Shell said stammeringly, Ronan, so this is my first test." The hero replied, "Yes, it is. The best opponent I could find to show off your skills is the Moon Goblin. That's the leader. What do you think? Isn't that cool?" When Ashel saw the goblin, she was terrified, but Ronan with a smile on his face encouraged his friend and said, "Now isn't it time we started?" The hero decided to explain that moon goblins are a type of goblin often found in this land. Most people distinguish them from normal goblins by their yellow skin and broken bodies. But in truth, the unique trait of the Lunars is their immense love for gold and other treasures. They often ambush merchants to rob them. The goblins gather everything of value in one place and hold a feast at the full moon like today. Dan shall guess what would happen, and Ro confirmed it by saying that they would rob everything today. The red-haired boy muttered in surprise, "I've never heard of such a thing. Goblins who collect valuables and throw parties, but how do you know about that?" While reaching into his bag, Ronan explained that he had his own sources, while considering not telling him that he had discovered them by accident in his previous life. The hero hugged his friend and said that he had to move all their treasures into the bag through telekinesis while they slept. But Shell himself hesitated. He was very afraid of making a mistake and waking up the goblins. Ronan explained that if something went wrong, they would be in real trouble. After saying that, Asheli became even more frightened. However, the hero decided to calm the boy down and explained, "To enter Fillion, you need two things. First, money, because the school fees are very expensive, and second, real experience. The funds are indeed an issue, but experience is more important. Fillion is filled with nobles who have received the best education since childhood. If you want to get past them, there's only one way: gain experience by risking your life. These people are the perfect opponents. You can gain both money and experience at the same time. Two birds with one stone." Ronan had persuaded Eskel to undertake an endeavor. The red-haired boy agreed, trembling with fear and tears. The action began. Little by little, Shell took the gold out of the chest and put it into his bag. When both bags were full, Ron patted his partner's head while thinking, "Actually, I wasn't sure until the end." And in fact, Ashel got involved pretty quickly. "He's much better than I thought. I found a very valuable pawn." The hero closed all the bags and said that they weren't done yet and needed to leave before anything undesirable happened. Suddenly, somewhere in the night forest, two men in red uniforms were running after a bird, causing a lot of noise. Ron was startled and exclaimed, "What kind of person makes noise in the forest at midnight?" At that moment, the goblins' heads woke up. In their language, one of them said, "It's already late. Where's that noise coming from? What? Where are our shiny things? Thieves. Where are they?" Unexpectedly, the goblins saw the thieves and charged at them with unusual anger. The hero immediately prepared to attack. As the red-haired boy knelt in fear, he offered to drop the bags and run away. However, Ronan didn't think about that. He drew his sword and said, "How do you plan to pay for joining in this case?" Seeing his weapon, the hero hesitated. It was a long sword made of cheap steel. With its weight and hardness, the sword could withstand about 15 attacks, and there were 30 attacks. Although 15 attacks were enough. With a single swing of his sword, Ronan decapitated 3 heads at once. After a short while, the hero successfully cut down all the goblins. Ashel, who had watched the fight, couldn't imagine that Ronan was so strong. The boy wondered in awe. It was incredible what he had done. He decapitated 3 goblins with 1 strike, and then, in front of the other goblins, Ronan simply disappeared. In the blink of an eye, he reappeared. It was an astonishing sight. When it was over, the hero shouted, "What are you standing there for? Are you planning to just keep doing nothing? Pack your things quickly. We're going home." On the way back, Rom grumbled because their bags were so heavy, thinking that the journey would be easy. However, it turned out he had somewhat overestimated their abilities. In addition, the hero also realized that his muscles ached after slicing through a bunch of pitiful goblins. Maybe it was because he was still growing. So Ronan decided to do some heavy physical training when he returned. Shell asked what that terrifying scream was, but the hero said he didn't know, though he was really angry, wondering why someone would be screaming in the forest at midnight. Suddenly, someone shot an arrow, and thanks to Ronan's excellent reaction time, he managed to catch the arrow right in front of Ashel's face. Immediately, the angry hero muttered, "Is this forest cursed or what? Why are there so many fools wandering around here? Who are you?" Across from them stood 2 boys in red uniforms. The blonde one was carrying a sack, and the other one was holding a bow, which he had just shot. Shadian apologized for attacking without warning, explaining that he thought he had heard something rustling in the distance and assumed it was a monster. Ronan unwrapped the pair and shouted with a look of disbelief, "Bullshit. You don't even hide your greedy faces. Stop your nonsense and answer normally. Who are you?" The bent-over man laughed and answered, "Indeed, somehow I missed it and forgot to introduce myself properly. I apologize for that." Suddenly, the red-uniformed boy pulled out a knife and attacked Ronan, but the hero had already anticipated the strike, so he caught his arm and counterattacked. The blond man decided not to crowd in and also pulled out a knife to attack from behind. However, at that moment, Ashel gathered his thoughts and used his technique on the enemy, incapacitating him. With a smile on his face, Ronan boasted to his partner and dropped the knife from the blond man's hand. Grabbing it, he attacked the red-uniformed boy, rendering him immobile. With one swing of the knife, the hero was able to kill the man instantly, and Shelley decided to wonder if he was already dead, wiping blood from his face. Ronan replied, "Of course, Steve-Ub, rather than someone trying to kill me." "Yes, and didn't you hear what that person said? They're from Caliber. Wild hunts, kidnappings, human trafficking. A criminal organization that does all sorts of crimes, the most brutal criminal gang in the Empire. Without me, they would have cut out your organs and buried you somewhere quietly. Letting them go, knowing the truth, is a violation, so you're done with this." Before he finished speaking, his companions noticed a small sack moving very quickly. Shell asked, "Is this the beast you captured?" Opening the sack, Ronan agreed with his friend and opened it. From there, a blue bird flew out. There was no limit to the children's astonishment. They all exclaimed, "What kind of strange bird is this?" Ashel shouted with inspiration, "This is the first time I've seen a blue bird. Razanu frut." Ronan added, "Me too. That collar is a Calabaro trap, a hunting collar. It disrupts the mana flow of the prisoner and restricts its movement. I think they're used at certain times, like when they capture fantasy creatures. Maybe it's a blue bird." Without letting the hero finish his thought, someone spoke up. Finally, he could speak. Thinking that the bird was speaking, Ashel rushed toward Ronan in fear, but the hero stopped him, explaining that it was communication magic. He then turned to the magic circle behind the bird and asked, "I guess you are the owner of this blue bird?" The stranger replied, "Correct, my name is Varen. I study fanatic creatures at this institute. I'm the caretaker of this bird. No matter how many times I tried to contact it, I couldn't. I was about to file a report, but I thought I managed to escape. I didn't mean to be rude. But who are you?" Ronan explained that they were just passing through and fought the hunters who had stolen the bird. The hero decided not to reveal that he had killed the hunters, so he simply added that they had saved the bird. Hearing this, the stranger exclaimed, I certainly thought about it, but for what it's worth, I owe you so much and I don't know how to repay you. Ashel smiled and said there was no need to pay anything, and then asked how to get the bird back. Anyway, the bird looked very thin because of the collar. At this point, Ronan looked at the collar carefully and asked, "If I remove the collar, will it be able to fly normally?" The handler replied, "Yes, it will. Dream birds have a good instinct for returning, so if you can release it." The hero immediately drew his sword and made several sharp slashes, causing the collar to break into several pieces. As he sheathed his sword, Ronan muttered, "Fly to your father, Sinyash, don't make him worry." The bird, inspired by the hero's words, decided to thank him. The bird flew toward Ronan and turned around. The hero immediately tensed up and shouted angrily, "Is it sticking its butt in my face now? What does that mean?" Someone answered, "It's asking you to pull out a feather before it flies. It seems like it wants to meet you again. The dream bird's feathers function like a compass. It will show it the way. Interesting. If you visit this institute, stop by and meet me." Ronan listened to the mysterious man and did what he was told. After that, the bird flew away with an unusually high speed for something to be controlled. Shell stared at Ronan's palm carefully and asked, "What's that in your hand?" The hero, with a puzzled expression, didn't understand what was going on. After all, he should have been holding the first one in his hand. A few days later, Ronan and Ashilai went to the merchants to haggle over some gems. One of the buyers, who was the owner, a ship merchant named Don Shipman, was inspecting the jewelry with a smile and said, "What kind of gemstone is this?" "Ah, the work of a jeweler. Everything about this jewelry is amazing. I'll give you 20 gold coins for it. You've brought so many wonderful items. I'm lucky today." Folding his arms, Ronan replied, "Think about this. I've met such a valuable customer. Finally, I've met someone good. All the other merchants are frauds. They bored me to tears. But I didn't walk around here without results. If only I could find a seller with integrity. Is there anything else you'd like me to evaluate?" The merchant, wearing glasses, agreed and began inspecting the items shown to him with great interest. While showing the egg, the hero said, "Well then, take a look at this. I don't want to sell it. I just want to know what it is." Ronan immediately remembered how the bluebird or lightning bird had left this egg with him that night. To be honest, at first, he thought the woman had pooped in his hand, but it didn't seem to be that. So, for safety, he threw a large stone to check it. That way, he found that the stone was sturdy enough since the egg shattered the stone. The merchant began to examine the egg very carefully and wondered, "I don't know whether it's a bird egg or something else, but it definitely belongs to a species of fantastical creature that's extremely rare. This treasure might be very valuable." Before answering Ronan, the hero at that moment gazed at the merchant with shining eyes, hoping to hear something extraordinary. However, when the merchant guessed it was a horse, his gaze turned flat and he said it wasn't a horse. As he looked back, the surprised merchant exclaimed, "Honestly, I don't know what it is, but I think it's something very unusual. Why don't you take it to a special place?" As he slipped the egg into his pocket, the hero replied, "It seems like that's all that's left. I can't sell it without knowing what it is." Then Ronan asked whether the merchant sold any books about Filion. The merchant decided to clarify, "Do you mean the academy?" Ronan replied with a serious expression, "Yes, we're going to take the entrance exam, but we don't know anything about it." Excitedly, the merchant exclaimed, "Ah, so you want to join too? What a coincidence. My daughter is going to enroll as well. I'm sure she can help you. She'll be here soon." Right at that moment, a girl appeared with a very arrogant expression and said, "What's going on here? Dad, who are these people?" The merchant exclaimed with a smile, "There she is. She's my only biological daughter, Marja." Turning around, Ronan looked at the girl and felt like he definitely knew her. The merchant muttered, "Maria, say hello. These are important customers I just closed a big deal with." With a cold stare, the girl replied, "Right, they're just little kids." For a moment, Don the shipbuilder got angry and said the girl was a brat and needed to watch her mouth. Smiling again, the merchant apologized to the kids and explained she was raised in a special forces unit, so her tongue is a little rough. At that moment, Ronan studied the girl closely. Unable to help himself, he decided to walk up to her, stood right in front of her and asked, "Hey, are you really Maria? Is your middle name SN?" Marja replied, "Yeah, but how do you know that?" Bowing his head, the hero said, "It's strange. You look exactly like someone I knew. Except I have one more thing to ask." "Right by your ear?" The girl grew very curious, so she let Ron ask. And the man asked a very strange question. Angry at such a personal question, Maria slapped the hero and said, "Shut up, you sick bastard." Taking the slap, Ronan reflected. Nice spit, that familiar feeling. It has to be her. Countess Maria SN. When I was stationed at a place called Armelin, Maria was in charge of supplies, with a strong work ethic and a friendly personality, able to connect with anyone. Maria was impressive, but I never imagined I'd find her here. The girl kept confronting Ronan with displeasure. The girl shouted, "Are you entertained? Was that not enough? Then take another one." Maria moved to strike, but Ronan quickly silenced her with a light tap on the head, explaining that he had simply let her hit him before, only because he had made a mistake. While the hero explained himself, the girl attacked him from behind, headbutting him right in the jaw with the words, "How about I hit you twice, bastard? What now?" Ronan and Maria grabbed each other and started throwing punches. At this point, Dawn and Ashel were watching everything with their mouths wide open. It took them a moment to realize they needed to break them up. Later, Ronan and Maria sat inside a tent, chatting. At that moment, Ashel looked at the two of them with a stunned expression, wondering what had happened. They had just been fighting like they wanted to kill each other, and now they were getting along. The hero asked the girl to check the gear left behind by the hunters. Maria Somo began examining them carefully and said, 3 swords and a magic staff. Why don't we leave behind the 3 swords? Won't it be hard to carry?" Ronan replied, "Just in case. I'm not good with swords, so what do you think of these?" Maria answered that the swords were decent, but the black iron sword was the best one. "Black iron is very durable," she explained. "It's something even famous knights look for." The girl added, "I don't know how rough you are with swords, but this one seems like it won't break." Ronan held the sword in his hand, surprised, and thought, "Wow, this black iron sword, this was my favorite weapon in the past." The girl continued, "This sword has a great magic stone embedded in it." "And you, little mage, what kind of magic do you use?" Ashel wanted to answer but hesitated, suddenly feeling shy. Blushing, the kid mumbled, "Telekinesis." Maria exclaimed loudly, "Telekinesis? That's awesome. If you do well, you might get a scholarship." Turning to Ronan, she asked, "All right, so what about you? What technique are you planning to show for the practical exam?" The hero hesitated seriously, and at that moment a shocked Maria said, "Wait, you don't know? To get into Filion, you have to impress the professors during the practical exam by showing off your technique. Of course, there's a written test too, but it's nothing compared to the practical. If you do well in that, you can get in. In other words, if you can't demonstrate your abilities, you can forget about this academy." Snorting, Ronan replied that for a swordsman, being good with a sword should be enough. Then he asked what most people usually show. Maria explained, "Some nobles demonstrate their family's secret techniques, but most martial artists and applicants show their own personal combat mana techniques." Interrupting her, Ronan mumbled, "Enough with the mana talk. Kids wielding swords at this age can use mana even without being mages." The girl stared at Ron, shocked, and said that for Filion applicants, it was normal to be able to do that. Students are first trained to sense their mana and then use it in combat. It's the very basics. She kept staring at Ronan and clearly saw that he didn't understand any of it. Jumping down from the table, she yelled, "Don't tell me you don't even know how to sense mana," trying to keep a calm face. The hero asked, "Isn't that kind of like using aura?" Hearing that, Maria felt like her brain exploded from the nonsense, and holding her face, she muttered, "And this guy seriously wants to enter Filion Academy?" She said aura was completely different. "How did your tongue twist that badly?" Ronan, clueless, answered, "I may not know that stuff, but why are you making such a fuss?" Unable to take his ignorance anymore, Maria jumped off the platform and shouted, "This won't work. Get out of here right now. And can I borrow this dagger? I left my sword at the workshop." Ronan tensed up and asked, "Hey, what's with the dagger? What if you break it?" The girl told the hero not to worry, saying this would be over before it even began, and if anything happened, she'd pay back all three of them. Just before walking off, Maria told Ronan to stop hesitating and follow her. She had decided to give him a special training session. Once they were outside, the girl began explaining, "Mana is the source of natural power. Just like air, it's an energy that exists everywhere in the world. But that doesn't mean everyone can use it. To use mana, you have to see it and feel it within yourself, what we call mana sense. Training, natural talent, and other factors all affect reaching the stage. Even personal motivation can play a role, but in many cases it takes about a year just to experience it. Promising Owl students already passed this phase. After mastering their personal mana techniques, they enter the academy. Got it. Now forget about your feelings. You don't even know the difference between mana and aura, and you're planning to go to Filion." They boasted about using aura and showed off strange powers. They were incredibly annoying. So it's surprising to learn just how amazing it actually is. But even so, they still got chopped down and died. Marja muttered, "All right, let's wrap up the explanation for now. Should we get started? I think I'll get through to you faster using your body than your head." While the hero reminded himself that the girl before him was still just a young girl, at that moment, Maria was already preparing to strike. Gathering mana, she launched herself toward Ronan at high speed. The hero was nearly caught off guard but managed to raise his sword just in time to block her attack.